All right, folks, let's get into it because there's plenty to chew on after Celtic's preseason friendly against Estrela da Amadora. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's just a closed-door game in the middle of July. No crowd, no stakes, and probably forgotten by most within 24 hours. But make no mistake, there's a lot we can take away from this match, especially when you're looking at how the squad's shaping up, who's looking sharp, and what glaring issues are still following us into this new campaign. So the Hoops went down 3-2 to Estrela da Amadora, a result that in itself isn't cause for panic. It's preseason after all. But when you start dissecting the 90 minutes, you realize there are storylines bubbling under the surface that could very well spill into the competitive fixtures if not addressed. Played at Benfica's campus, which looked tidy enough from what we saw on the stream. The match gave us two separate Celtic lineups for each half, essentially treating them as two different games. Let's start with that first 45. Senny started in goal, and the first thing that jumps out is just how vocal the lad is. You couldn't miss him even without a crowd. It took me a moment to work out who it was shouting in that sharp English accent. K2 left shoulder body. He's loud commanding, and from the very first few minutes it was clear he's not shy about barking orders. Whether it's Kieran Tierney or a young lad when he tells you to check your shoulder, you check your shoulder. It's the kind of presence that's been missing a bit between the sticks, to be honest. He doesn't just talk for the sake of it. Either he organizes, and that's crucial when you've got a backline still learning each other's tendencies. Speaking of that backline, we have McPherson on the right, Kobe Donovan, and Austin Trusty in the center with Tierney on the left. And it was a solid enough showing, but the fragility on set pieces remains a thorn in the side. Honestly, it's starting to feel like deja vu. The second goal we conceded came from a corner, and just like so many times last season against Leipzig in the derbies, you could feel it coming. You watch the marking on those corners, and it's just not convincing. You got lads getting peeled off, losing their men, and no clear communication. I know some folk are still back in man marking, but I'm telling you this hybrid system might be worth a shot. Pure man marking just isn't cutting it anymore. The standout moment of that first half, aside from the goals, was spotting Tierney and Trusty having a wee blether during one of the water breaks. It clicked with me. They were both at Arsenal not too long ago. A quick search confirmed they'd actually played together in a friendly against the MLS All-Stars. Now that might seem like a small detail, but chemistry like that, especially on the left side of the back four, can be massive. They look comfortable alongside each other, and you've got to think if they can build on that partnership, it could anchor the defense for the season ahead. Tierney himself looked well like Tierney. Even if it was only 45 minutes in a behind-closed-doors game, you could feel that old buzz when he got on the ball. That same confidence and drive we saw before he left for Arsenal. He's direct, aggressive in the best way, and was already linking up well with Maida down that left flank. You give those two a few more games together, and that side could be electric. It's the kind of dynamic partnership we missed too often last season. In midfield, McGregor was his usual self, calm, sharp, and always available. Hatate added that extra bit of flair and vision going forward, and McCowan slotted in decently enough. It wasn't a flawless display by any means, but it was cohesive, especially for a first real run out for many of them. Maeda looked to step off the pace, a bit rusty maybe, but it's early days and nobody's expecting him to hit full gear right now. Telio on the right was lively in spells, got himself involved in the first goal, and looked hungry to make a statement. But again, as has been the theme too often, we shot ourselves in the foot defensively. The set-piece issues aren't new, and if we're not solving them in the soft matches, they'll punish us when it matters. I'm not pointing fingers for the sake of it, but it's clear that if we're going to compete at any level in Europe this season, we need to be better in those situations. Watching Ben McPherson lose his man for that Estrela goal felt all too familiar. Come the second half, Brendan Rodgers rang the changes as expected. Ross Doohan took over in goal, and the rest of the lineup shifted completely. You had Ralston at right back, Dane Murray, and Liam Scales in the center, with Yuki Kobayashi filling in at left back. McGregor started the half again, which tells you everything about how important he still is to this side, but was subbed out around the hour mark for Sean McCarty. The midfield was rounded out by debutant Benjamin Nugent and young Annie Engels. Up front, James Forrest took over on the right, Young on the left, and young Adam played through the middle, and look, the second half didn't hit the same level. We lost control in the middle of the park, and honestly, it felt like we never really got into a proper rhythm. Part of that comes down to Hatate and McGregor being off the pitch. You remove that duo, and you immediately lose your heartbeat. That said, James Forrest was lively, probably the standout of the second half. At his age, with all the talk of him winding down, he still looked like he had a point to prove. Now one real positive came with the second half goal. It was beautifully worked. Neilgan drove through the middle, not the fastest lad, but with just enough acceleration. And he showed great awareness to cut it back for Adam, who was perfectly placed to finish. That's the kind of composure and link-up play you want to see more of. And again, it's preseason, but when you see something that clean, you take notice. A word on Sean McCarty, he's only 16 or 17, still got that raw edge. And yeah, he looked like a boy amongst men at times. But there were flashes, and I mean real flashes. He's got a cultured left-footed black boots which you love to see on a young lad, and a calmness in possession that hints at something special. Heard whispers, well, more than whispers actually, that Brendan Rodgers rates him highly, and the fact he was the only young attacker from the B team to get minutes speaks volumes. Wouldn't shock me if he becomes the designated backup to McGregor this season, especially if we fail to bring in a proper replacement for that role. Because let's be honest, we've tried and failed with that position before. Itaguchi, McCarthy, even a build guard. None of them could displace Cal Mack, or maybe the answer's been in-house the whole time. I'd have no issue seeing McCarty get those 15 or 20 minutes here and there. McGregor plays nearly every minute anyway, but in those cup games or dead rubbers, give the kid a chance. Why not now? Brendan Rodgers after the game was typically measured. Said there were positives, some things we need to work on, but overall happy with the fitness levels and effort. That's fair. It's the third friendly of the summer, but for a lot of these players, it was their first actual game back. We need to remember that when we're judging these performances. Touches were heavy, passes went astray, and sharpness wasn't there. But it's not meant to be yet. It's about minutes in the legs and building understanding. But that didn't stop. The usual suspects in the media from blowing things out of proportion. Comparing a closed-door friendly loss to Estrella to failing to invoke the spirit of the Lisbon Lions. Give me peace. It's laughable. The players were given Sunday off and will be back for double sessions this week. And the next 3 matches, there'll be a proper test. Sporting midweek Newcastle at the weekend, Ajax next Thursday. All 3 already in the UEFA Champions League group stage. That's where we'll really learn something. And speaking of learning things, there's transfer. News too. Marco Tilio might be on his way back to Melbourne City. They're exploring a loan or permanent deal. That caught a few people by surprise, especially since Tilio just gave an interview not long ago where he said he saw himself playing regularly in Europe next season. Didn't say whether that was with Celtic or elsewhere, and the vagueness kind of spoke for itself. You'd assume if you really saw his future here, he'd have said it. The A-League doesn't kick off until mid-October, and Melbourne City are in the Asian Champions League this year, so it's not like he wouldn't get minutes. But if his goal is Europe, going back to Australia feels like a step back. That said, maybe it's just about finding confidence again and getting regular game time. Thought he looked decent on Saturday, involved in the first goal, and showed flashes, but nothing to cement his place. Hyunjun Yang is another name floating around. Norwich City have shown interest, and apparently Yang himself is open to a move. If we're being honest, and I think most Celtic supporters would agree here, if a decent bid comes in, we're probably taking it. The lad did improve in the second half of last season, started getting into better positions, contributing more, but do we see him as a long-term starter? I'm not convinced. If someone puts 3 or 4 million on the table, you'd probably shake his hand and wish him well. Jota. Brendan Rodgers confirmed what a lot of folk feared were unlikely to see him back this calendar year. Now, while that's not exactly shocking given the seriousness of the injury, an ACL tear, it still stings. Jota's not just another player. He's someone who brought magic to the pitch, flair, unpredictability, and an edge in the final third that few in the squad can replicate. So yeah, when Rodgers says it's going to be next year before we see him again, that lands heavy. According to Rodgers, Jota's progressing well. He can straighten the knee. Now he's back working in the gym, and there's no sign of setbacks. That's all good. And obviously you want to hear it's going smoothly. But let's be real. ACL injuries are long roads. Even once he's back running and training, it's going to take months before he's fully match fit. And then another spell before he's back to the Jota we remember. That's not pessimism. That's just the reality of these injuries. So for this season, you can probably write him off for any meaningful contribution. He might be back for the final stretch, but to expect him to jump in and be decisive in Europe or in a title race after 10 months out, it's just not fair on him. Best case, he uses this time wisely, gets properly fit, and comes back next season with a full preseason under his belt. That's the target. And it brings into sharp focus how much we're now lacking in wide attacking areas. Think about it. Jota's out. Kobu left back in January and still hasn't been replaced. And now Nicholas leaves too, also not replaced yet. That's 3 top-tier attacking talents who were all key at different points last season. As it stands, we are weaker going into this campaign than we were coming out of the last one. And the clock's ticking. There are games on the horizon, serious ones, and the squad still feels a couple of signings short in critical areas. And before folk panic, no, that's not saying the season's doomed, but it does mean the board needs to get a move on. There's a fine balance between patience and complacency, and we've walked that line before with mixed results. Brendan, Rodgers clearly wants reinforcements. You can hear it in the way he talks about depth, about flexibility. And when you've got players like Jota gone for months, you can't just hope Maeda and Forrest carry the load. A quick note on Kasper Schmeichel too. He didn't feature in the Australia match, and some folk were already whispering about what that meant. But Rodgers cleared that up. He only just returned to training last week, so they're easing him back. He's expected to play against Sporting in midweek, which should give us a much better look at where he's at physically. The pedigree's there, obviously, but the proof will be in the performances. Now, as if all that wasn't enough to keep us chatting, there was also a bit of contract talk regarding Brendan Rodgers himself. Media asked him about his future. Fair question, considering his current deal runs out at the end of this season. Technically speaking, this could be his final campaign at the club. So naturally, people are wondering, is he going to extend? Is there something already being worked on behind the scenes? Rodgers was pretty measured in his response. Said he's spoken informally with key people at the club, board members, execs. You know the sort, but there's nothing imminent. And honestly, that in itself opens the door for speculation. Because when you got a manager of his caliber in the final year of his deal, the longer that uncertainty lingers, the more it feeds questions about direction, stability, and recruitment. But here's my take, and I know some of you might disagree. I'm not too worried about it. Whether Rodgers is here next season or not, I don't think it massively changes what we're trying to achieve this season. If anything, the guy's as motivated as ever. Legacy matters to him. You can hear it in how he talks about building something lasting, about moving the club forward. Whether that's because he wants to stick around for another 3 years or go out on a high, the motivation's there. You only need to look at his approach with the younger players, with the system tweaks, with how involved he's been, even in these early preseason games, to see he's fully invested. I don't see any signs of a manager easing off, because he might not be here in 12 months. And more to the point, the players don't look like they're easing off either. Everyone's training hard, taking it seriously, and nobody's treating these matches like kickabouts. That being said, I get why some folk are uneasy. Long-term planning needs clarity. If you're trying to build something, sign players for key roles, you want to know who the manager will be. But that's a board level issue. From the pitch side, from the supporter side, I'm focused on the here and now. Get through this preseason, sharpen the team, make a couple of big additions, and hit the ground running in the league and Europe. If Rodgers signs a rolling extension in the middle of the season, brilliant. If he doesn't, we deal with that when it comes. And speaking of the here and now, we've got 3 massive tests lined up. Sporting, Newcastle, and Ajax, all qualified for the Champions League already and all serious sides. These games won't be about results necessarily, but about measuring up, about seeing where we're at physically and tactically. You want to see players fighting for their place, experimenting with partnerships, maybe even a debut or two from any new arrivals, assuming the club gets business done in time. Now we touched on Yang earlier, but it's worth circling back. Norwich might seem like a sideways move from the outside, but from a player's perspective, it's England, it's visibility, and it's a chance to push for bigger things. The real question for Celtic is what Yang offers us this season. Because yes, he improved last year. No denying that. He was more involved, more present in the box, creating more chances. But is that enough? If we're honest, he still looks a level below what you'd want as a week in, week out starter. And if there's actual money on the table, the 3 or 4 million say, I don't think we're in a position to be turning that down, especially if it frees up a spot for someone with more end product. I'd be fine keeping Young for another season, see if that trajectory continues, but I wouldn't lose sleep if he went. Sometimes the best move for all involved is to part ways when the timing's right. And that brings us full circle, because that's the theme of the whole preseason so far. Timing. Timing of contracts, timing of signings, timing of players returning from injury. You can feel the pressure starting to rise. Not in a panic sort of way, but in a way where you know the season's coming fast and the window's starting to close. These next 2 weeks are crucial. Whether it's sealing Rodgers' future, confirming Schmeichel's place, moving players in or out, it's time for action. Until then, the team has to focus on sharpening up. Saturday's match wasn't perfect, not even close, but you could see the outline of something taking shape. Tierney looking solid, Trusty growing into the shirt McGregor, still the heartbeat, and young lads like McCarty giving us hope that the next generation isn't far off. The pieces are there. Now it's about fitting them together, and fast. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are swirling through the football grapevine, hinting at an unexpected move that could shake up the European transfer scene this summer. According to several insider murmurs, Real Madrid might be considering sending their young Brazilian sensation ENDRICK on loan to none other than Celtic FC. The prospect has sent tongues wagging among fans and pundits alike, sparking intense speculation about what this could mean for both clubs involved and for the burgeoning star himself. ENDRICK, the 18-year-old striker who's been turning heads with his explosive talent and remarkable composure for such a young age, has long been regarded as one of the brightest prospects emerging from Brazil. Real Madrid, ever eager to nurture young talent while balancing the pressures of La Liga and Champions League ambitions, could see a loan spell at Celtic as the perfect proving ground. The Scottish Giants, renowned for their passionate fan base and rich European history, offer a tough physical league that could toughen the youngster and give him invaluable first-team experience in a demanding environment. While no official confirmation has yet been made, the chatter suggests that this potential loan could include the 2025-2026 season, allowing ENDRICK to adapt to European football's rigors away from the immediate spotlight at the Bernabeu. For Celtic, landing a talent of ENDRICK's caliber, even temporarily, would be a coup. The Hoops have a strong track record of developing young players and providing a platform to showcase their skills on a continental stage, often catching the eye of bigger clubs. ENDRICK's arrival could electrify the Celtic Park atmosphere, injecting fresh energy and goal-scoring prowess into a squad eager to reclaim Scottish dominance and make waves in European competition. From Real Madrid's perspective, this would not be the first time they've sent a promising youngster to the British Isles to gain experience. The strategy often involves allowing players to acclimatize to physical styles of play and intense atmospheres, building resilience before integrating them back into the first team. For ENDRICK, the loan spell could be a crucial step in his development, helping him mature both on and off the pitch. The buzz around this potential move is already capturing headlines and igniting debates across fan forums and social media. Could Celtic be the surprise landing spot for one of football's most talked about prospects? How would ENDRICK adapt to the Scottish Premiership's pace and physicality? And what might this mean for Real Madrid's long-term plans for the young Brazilian? Only time will tell. But for now, the rumor mill continues to churn, leaving fans eager for any scrap of news that might confirm this intriguing footballing twist. As the summer transfer window looms closer, all eyes will be on these two iconic clubs, waiting to see if this whispered deal materializes. If it does, it could mark the beginning of a fascinating chapter in ENDRICK's career, and an exciting new era for Celtic supporters hungry for fresh hope and thrilling football. Hello fan, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.